1925, a year of innovation, progress, and transformation. A year of grand contributions to our society. The Great Gatsby, Louis Armstrong, substitutes teaching evolution to high schoolers. But perhaps no contribution was as great or as invaluable to the American South as was the birth of our very own Betty Allen. In order to better understand the BJ we all know and love, we'd have to start a quarter century earlier, in 1894, in the state of Arkansas. Here, you'll find BJ's mother, Margaret Euphemia Norville, or, as she preferred to be called, Phemie. Phemie and her brother Lonnie were the children of Annie Clark and J.T. Allen, a farmer known to be the best carpenter in the town of Paragould. At the time of their marriage, Annie had been a widow and a mother of a little girl named Gertrude. J.T. and Annie had a significant commonality they shared. J.T. and Annie were both deaf. Aside from being fluent in early American Sign Language, J.T. and Annie shared another thing in common. They loved to brag on their children in letters to their family.
Gertie is almost grown. She acts like a lady. I wish you could see her. She is improving in her beauty. She is going to school every day. She does not think of boys yet, and I'm glad of it. Louisa Ann Clark Norville, 1898.
Lonnie is learning fast. He can spell words by heart. Phemie can talk for hours by signs, as good as when Lonnie was at your house. She is so fat and heavy. John Thomas Norville, 1898. Just as the new century arrived, so did tragedy in the lives of Phemie and her loved ones. Gertie was the first to contract tuberculosis, the leading cause of death in the United States. In 1901, at only 17, Gertrude Johnson closed her eyes, only to never open them again. A year later, Annie fell ill. The granddaughter she'd never get a chance to meet would one day write about in a note to her own children, taped to the back of a photograph.
Little Annises. Gertrude Johnson was your grandmother's half-sister by your great-grandmother's first marriage. She, Gertrude, died at the age of 14 or so. Your grandmother's mother died about a year later at 42. Both had TB. Your grandmother slept in the room with her sick and dying mother and took care of her through the night. Your grandmother was 6 or 7 years old. Your grandmother had this task because her parents were deaf mutes, and it was necessary to have someone who could hear tend to your great-grandmother at night. B.J. Annis.
Phemie said Mamie's suffering is now over. She died at 12:15 last Thursday morning and was buried by her daughter at Greenwood last Friday morning. She felt better Wednesday morning, but died very easily. She said she was tired and wanted to go. She has been a good friend to everyone that knew her. She will be missed so much. John Thomas Allen, January the 26th, 1902. As the years went on, J.T., Lonnie, and Phemie slowly rebuilt a life out of what wasn't taken. Phemie grew into a sharp young woman, and before long, she met and fell in love with a strapping young gentleman by the name of Ernest Allen. The story goes like this. Ernest Allen once took a train from Talbot, Georgia to Chicago, Illinois. Once he had arrived, he had found his luggage had been stolen at the train depot. But Ernest wasn't deterred. When Ernest returned, he was a different man. He wore all new clothes. The Ernest that came home was well-dressed, streetwise, and well-versed in the business of proffering a certain gaming device known to some folks as the slot machine. Ernest and Pheme married in Tennessee in 1914, and not long after, packed up and moved to the city where the slot machine business would be booming. A town where not even Prohibition could stop the party, Augusta, Georgia. Family lore has it that Pheme affectionately called her husband Mist Allen in front of the family, a testament to their unique dynamic after 48 years of marriage. Betty was the third of 4 children. Her older brothers, Joe, was 9, and Edgar Jr. was 6. Little Betty started school asking to be called Joe because she loved her older brother. The teacher made a compromise with her, agreeing to call her Betty Jo, BJ for short. By 1940, the family had resided at 1521 Montesano Avenue, and her father was noted as the proprietor of amusements. In truth, Edgar Ernest was involved as a petty criminal in bootlegging sale of alcohol. He was known in Augusta as someone who helped run specific merchandise to certain special customers during this time. Money in the Allen family came and went, but Euphemia cared deeply about her family. Grandmom, as she is known to some, doted on BJ. She was known to be the favorite. Young Betty was enrolled in dance classes in order to set her up to be a proper lady. She had fancy photographs taken of Betty, and she often dressed her in the most darling of fashions. As a young woman, Betty continued to grow and flourish in Augusta. In 1942, she proudly graduated from Tubman High School, a significant achievement that marked the end of one chapter and the exciting beginning of another. A year after graduating in 1943, at the age of 18, Betty Allen married Lawrence Annis. Larry and BJ were said to have met at a USO dance. Was it love at first sight? BJ said, "I remember meeting your dad. I think he got me pregnant from 30 yards away. I would ovulate if your dad and I were in the same zip code." The early years of their marriage brought both immense joy and profound sorrow. On December 31st, 1944, Betty gave birth to twins, Martha Kerr and Leslie Allen. Tragically, they passed away just a few days later on January the 2nd, 1945, from a doctor error. This immense loss was heart-wrenching and stayed with BJ throughout her life. Life continued to unfold, and in 1945, they resided at 2330 Oglethorpe Avenue in Augusta. On December 28, 1946, a beacon of light arrived with the birth of her first son, Lawrence Vincent Annis, born right here in Augusta, Georgia. Amidst the joys and challenges of new motherhood, Betty also pursued her education, attending Boston College in 1946. Her commitment to learning and education thread throughout her life. From 1949 to 1951, Betty took on the role of clerk typist at the Veterans Administration Oliver General Hospital in Augusta, contributing her skills and dedication. During these years, they resided at 2352 Minto Street. The family continued to grow. On April 18, 1952, her second son, Michael Norville Annis, was born in Cincinnati, Ohio. And just over a year later, on November 26, 1953, Betty welcomed her third son, David Allen Annis, adding another beautiful chapter to their lives. The mid-50s marked a period of growth and community involvement for Betty and Lawrence. In 1954, they were among the founding members of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Augusta. They were friends with rabbis, the local Society of Friends, and Seventh-day Adventists. On September 22, 1956, Betty gave birth to her fourth son, Jeffrey Clark Annis, in Augusta. Their household was certainly full of life with four energetic boys. The eldest of the sons began to drift to Euphemia's house for refuge. Grandmom was always known to be a good caretaker who had a strong work ethic with her various homemaking skills. She would put the young boys to work raking the yard or shining the silver and was affectionately known as the Granny Work Witch. Beyond her growing family, Betty also played a crucial role in the family business. In 1955, she was listed as the Secretary-Treasurer of Annis Pest Control Incorporated, showcasing her sharp mind and hands-on involvement with their shared ventures. She was Larry's perfect complement when it came to running the business. BJ would sit down at her desk, talk to customers, type the bills and statements, made sure everyone had uniforms, and made sure the money came in while Larry worked in the field. BJ would start work at 8 a.m. and stay until the last truck came in. BJ and Larry enjoyed their large family with much social activity. They loved to sell and had bridge parties back when they had the house on Whitney Street. Larry enjoyed drinking gin drinks and once avoided a DUI while driving very carefully down Central Avenue at 15 miles an hour. Family dinners were an event that took place at the table. Lively debates would abound on the Federalist Papers like amendments, the Bill of Rights, or the Constitution. After dinner, the family would sit in the den and watch sitcoms. BJ loved for her kids to get ice cream because it was a challenge to get ice cream back when she was young. She thought the kids should get all the ice cream they want. Lively conversation would continue after the children were sent to bed. The Annis family hosted political figures socially, such as future Augusta Mayor Inez Wiles and Senator Strom Thurmond. BJ was a longtime member of the League of Women Voters, the Richmond County Republican Women, and the Republican Party of Richmond County. Needless to say, she was active politically and even proudly attended the inauguration of Richard Nixon. Sadly, the new decade brought another profound loss. On February 23, 1971, Betty's mother, Euphemia, passed away in Augusta at the age of 76. Also, in 1971, after 28 years of marriage, BJ and Larry divorced. BJ was depressed and distraught and leaned hard especially on her friends Miss Kitty and Aunt Eve to get her through the devastating turn. At 46 years old, Betty embarked on a new chapter, navigating life as an independent woman and a devoted mother to her 6 children. After closing one chapter, Betty, at 46, truly began to define her own path, embarking on new adventures and dedicating herself to causes close to her heart. This period truly showcased her inherent strength and unwavering belief in the power of education. Education was always a deeply ingrained value for Betty, a belief she had subtly fostered in her own life, in that of her children. Now that she was ready to make her broader impact, extending her passion for learning to her entire community. She envisioned a difference that could reshape the lives of children across the Richmond County School District. This profound conviction led her to take a bold step into public service. In 1972, Betty Annis qualified for the 8th Ward seat on the Richmond County Board of Education, a testament to her belief that her family values translated directly into her dedication to public education. Her advertisements in the Augusta Chronicle and other local newspapers spread her message far and wide. Her candidacy wasn't just about winning a seat, it was about inspiring others. Betty's courageous run for office resonated deeply, particularly with other women in the community. Letters and testimonies from women of that era who shared how Betty's determination to enter politics encouraged them to get involved and advocate for change in their own neighborhoods and beyond. BJ truly paved the way, showing that local community involvement could create lasting positive impact. And her efforts paid off. In 1973, Betty Annis was successfully elected a trustee of the Richmond County Board of Education. Her politics might be described as fiscally conservative and socially liberal. She aligned with John S. Davison of Davison Fine Arts School about equalizing education for black children. One of BJ's proudest legacies is the work she accomplished for the betterment of local school children. She served for a long tenure on the board from 1973 to 1995. BJ's greatest joy in her older years was her grandchildren, especially Leslie. The kids would run wild in her home while she watched television in her study, smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, and completing the crossword. She encouraged all of them to pursue education and instilled in them traditions that honored time with family. BJ held big holiday events at her home on Glen Avenue in the 90s, with food and presents and great cheer of being together. She cared deeply for her family, learning all she could and giving back to the world justly. BJ's advice to us all now perhaps might be, don't be so captured with your work you miss time with your family. It is because of her we are all here now delighting the presence of what she left for us to enjoy, our time together and our love and peace in her legacy.